Hey guys, welcome back. This is David, and today I want to go through some residential projects. We always have some of these smaller projects going on, could be big houses or small houses, but generally they're a smaller project in nature. And wanted to go through and just give you a brief overview of what's included in a plan set for a residential project, and then go through a basic setup. And I won't go through each how to do each sheet in detail. You can get with your supervisor to give you guidance on what tasks need to be performed for each sheet. But today I wanted to give you a brief overview so that you know what's going on. So let's learn. Welcome back. Today we're going to go through a couple PDF sets of residential projects, and then we'll go through a setup. This project looks like about 9 pages. We have a cover sheet with some basic information on here. The second sheet is almost always a survey. Um, Third sheet is where we take the survey, convert it into our layers, and so this is an actual product of our company, but it's still basically the survey layers. The same thing we got from those guys, and we have it here on an existing condition slash demolition plan. And here we would just note trees that we're taking out and items that are coming out of the project. Any of these items that are being removed will go on a demo layer that then doesn't show up on any other plan. So when we go to the next site plan, you can see that these layers are gone. So um, we take some things from the survey layers, put them on the demo layers, and then they never show up again. So the next sheet is a site plan, basically just layout. It tells you what the objects are, what the house is, how to locate it to the property line, setbacks, things like that, vicinity map, some general notes. Then a grading plan. So we have existing topography from the surveyor, and then we tie these grades in to the house. So you'll note that the contour line is like a slice through the earth. It's always going to go in one side and go out the other. It could come in over here and go back out here, and then another one at the same elevation come here and go out, but it's always going to have two. They're always going to come in pairs. It's always going to go in and always going to come out. And so when it comes into the site, we are signifying that we're changing the grades and disturbing the ground by putting a new contour, a black line on top of the light gray color. And then we manipulate that contour however we want for the shape of the project, and then we drop it back off again before we get to the property line, signifying that we're not doing any work at the property line. So that's a basic grading plan. Then in most, but not all places, we'll have some stormwater calculations. This is the Georgia Stormwater um, spreadsheet. It calculates total suspended solids. We call it the TSS sheet, and we fill it out, put it in here. This is just an overview showing the area that drains to the water quality, and this is the area that gets put into this spreadsheet. We have a little brief narrative describing how the stormwater is treated. Have a couple details or cut sheets for things that we're going to install in the project that contribute to the water quality. And then sometimes we do this little spreadsheet that is basically a copycat of the Georgia Stormwater Management Manual, and which we call the Blue Book, and they have a step-by-step guide of how to run these calculations. So sometimes we put this Excel spreadsheet in here so that the plan reviewers can see that we followed the exact steps from the Blue Book. And we don't do this too much anymore. When we started doing this, we felt like it was going to give us a leg up in permitting, that the plan reviewers would see that we followed the exact formula from the Blue Book, and they would be a little bit more lenient on their review, maybe give them more confidence about our design plan. But it didn't seem to really help that much, so we don't do it that much anymore. But it's still a nice thing to put on the plan. The erosion control plan, we have 3 phases. If a project is over 1 acre, we have to do 3 phases. If it's less than 1 acre, we can just do 1 phase. The first phase are the erosion control BMPs that you put in place before you start any construction. The final phase are the permanent BMPs that are left after construction is done. So the second phase, or the middle phase, is really the basic erosion control plan for the project. So when we're doing a site that's less than 1 acre, we're going to just do that middle plan, and which in our sheets is sheet layout or paper space C502. Probably in reality, we should have taken off this phase 2 and just called it erosion control. And there is no phase 1 in this plan, so there is no 501. We probably could have just renamed that to 501 since there is no 501 sheet, but the 502 sheet is our normal kind of basic erosion control plan. It's phase 2 of the erosion control plan. So that's why you see that it's phase 2, and typically the plan reviewers don't care that, you know, we get to name the sheets whatever we want, and so even though that's the first 500 series, it's 502, and that's fine. Then we have some erosion control details on 701, and then a landscape plan, which on this project is really just signifying which trees have come out for this project. You'll note here that we have rain leaders picking up the roof drains from around the house and going to a water quality unit right there. Okay, so on to the next project. This one again has a cover sheet, all the same basic information. It has a survey. It has the existing condition sheet, and we've noted things that are coming out. We've got the site plan, got the same basic elements: building setbacks, retaining walls, driveways, garage, building. And you'll note on some of these plans that there's permeable pavers. A lot of times if we disturb more than 5,000, or sorry, if we add more than 5,000 square feet of impervious area, we have to do a much larger version of hydrology and water quality. So a lot of times the cities will let us keep the impervious area low by putting in pervious driveways and pervious sidewalks, and that is not considered impervious. It doesn't count against us. So that's what that is on this sheet. We've got a grading plan. You can see that this house is kind of notched into the hill. We've got a big retaining wall here. We've got lots of grading going down. Pool area back here. Got some wall profiles for those walls so that the contractor knows how to build them. We don't permit the retaining walls. Those need to be designed by like a geotech engineer / retaining wall designer. So typically we'll have that the walls are designed and permitted by others or by the contractor. But here we've shown profiles of the walls so that they know exactly what the design intent was. Here's that TSS spreadsheet again. We've got those calculations from the Blue Book. We've got a narrative. We've got a little diagram showing the areas that we're treating, and then those areas get mapped into the state's Blue Book's TSS spreadsheet. And then here's some calculations that show that we meet the requirements of that. Again, the erosion control, it's a 502 because it's a standard erosion control. We have a much larger set of notes, but in one of our templates we have these, what we just call erosion notes for small projects. And so we usually just stick those on there and then use all these standard legends from the 502 sheet. Also, when we're doing a single phase, we need to take the phase 1, 2, and 3 schedules and combine them together to be kind of all 3 phases in one. And this is also already pre-made for projects, small projects that are only single phase. But you do need to read through it and delete anything that doesn't apply to the project or add stuff potentially. Again, we've got standard erosion control sheets. That sheet is exactly the same as another project. And then we have some other stormwater sheets, stormwater details and things that we needed for this project. So that's a brief overview of 2 projects. This time we're going to walk through setting up a project. Actually, let me back up real quick and show you one thing. I've gathered a bunch of examples, and you guys will have access to the support directory and then go to documentation, and I've made a new folder called example plans, and we'll populate this with other types of things. But in the example plans, we've got residential construction documents. And so here are a bunch of different plans you can look at. Those 2 plans that I just walked you through, they're in here. So there's lots of different plans, some big, some small, some old, some new. Generally, I would say pay attention to the newer ones more than the older ones. Some of the older ones are pretty interesting and big. This one was a very modern house that kind of looked out over a mountaintop. We have some other very large houses in here, but we've refined the way that we've done things, and so some of these newer ones might be better examples. So those are available to you under support documentation, example plans, residential construction documents. Also under the support folder, we have AutoCAD, and we have a number of different types of templates to start with. So this one, title block template, that's what we use for commercial projects generally, or large projects. And then I have one down here for single family. This is the one we're going to use today. So I'm going to copy that. You don't ever want to work in this folder. You always want to copy things to your project folder. And then this is the project that we're going to be setting up. And so I'm going to paste this template in there. This, you've probably seen this before. This is just like the standard DWG file that our project template starts with. We're not even going to use this for, we haven't drawn anything in here. We're not going to use that for this project, so we'll just delete it. And so this project is 24-3-26, and so I'm going to name this 24-3-26 CD and then the date. And this is the file that we're going to start working in. Also, we've already converted the survey for this project, and that was what was on the screen just a moment ago. Survey is in this folder, and this is the one that I have open right now. So we're going to bring the survey information from this file, we're going to copy it, and we're going to paste it into this file, which I've just opened up. So here's the file that we've opened up. You've probably learned how to set up the title block, put the project number, the date that you anticipate issuing the drawings, project name, address, etc. You need to pick the state. I'll show you. We have a block that varies for different states with the seal. This one's going to be in Georgia, so I'll pick Georgia. So it has the seal and the signature built in, and then you just put this on top. So I'm just going to pick a date about a week from now, and this may change, but that's what it might look like. We'll save the changes. You can see the Georgia seal there, and then we'll go into model space. Okay, here's the other project that you saw before. We're going to copy this information from the survey into that other project. Now, the geolocation is turned on. If I turn on the aerial, you will see that it drops in and it lines up on the lake here. Whenever you copy anything from one drawing to another, you want to make sure you're always in world, which is the base XY coordinates in any project. And you can tell that it's world because it has this little square down here at the bottom. So first make sure that you're in world, then do middle button YA to turn all the layers on. And so this project, the owner didn't want to pay for field run topography, so we downloaded the GIS file the GIS map with topography on it from the county's website, Hall County GIS. And usually it's best to grab that with an aerial because you can always line things up in the aerial. You can pick like this corner of this driveway and that corner of that driveway. You know, if you're trying to line it up against this aerial that's in AutoCAD and you just have streets and a lake, it's going to be hard to line it up. So one tip is that you turn on the aerial when you're going to capture things like this that you want to trace in, and then you can more accurately align that image to the background image in CAD so that everything lines up better. And we have another video, I think it's called like aligning an image to a project or something like that, and we walk through exactly how to do that. So we're in world, we've turned everything on, middle button YA, and then we'll just grab everything and do Control Shift, I didn't mean to press that button, Control Shift C, and then it's asking you for the base point, and we're just always going to pick 0, 0. So we're picking like the 0 coordinate system. And that's not good, but it's probably good for this video because now we get to tell you how to fix it. Anytime there's an error or something weird in your drawing, always run purge end and then audit. So I'm going to type PURGEND, I'll show you that again. There it is, purge end. And then, because that deletes any unreferenced items that may be in the drawing of objects that don't exist. And then we're going to run audit, fix, yes. And it's probably going to find some errors. And then save. It's probably a good idea to save before and after. Okay, let's try this again. Control Shift C, 0, 0. And we're still getting an error. So I'm going to close this one out and then open it back up. And then I would guess that would solve the problem. It's very rare that purge, audit, close, and reopen doesn't solve a problem, but it could. And if it does, I'll show you another thing that we can do. So let's try this again. Control Shift C, 0, 0. Yep. All right. So it's not working. So that's very rare. You won't see that often. I don't know why it's doing that. Our standard procedure is to copy the objects and then paste them into our drawing. The reason we want to do that is because typically when we get files from surveyors and other people, there's all of these different layers that aren't our layers in there. And they may be styles in their drawing or something like that. If we drag and drop this drawing into our drawing, it's going to load all of their styles and their layers into our drawing, which isn't good. We want to keep our drawing clean. So if we put all the objects on our layers and then we grab our objects, we're really only going to be grabbing our layers and pasting them into the drawing, and then our drawing doesn't get polluted with all of their layers. But I don't think we have a choice on this one because of that error. Let's what is this? Got some dots down here. Just in case there's something with this other one, I'm going to purge that one. Audit, fix. This is the template drawing. I don't expect there to be any errors, but there are, so now I know I need to go back into that template file and make a repair, do an audit. Okay, it fixed 8 errors. Let's save that again. Let's go back to this guy. Purge end, audit, fix, yes. No errors. Save. And just in case this is an issue, let's turn that image off and that image off. We could always reload those. And yeah, it doesn't like that. I wonder if it's these Kogo points potentially. Let me turn those off and let's see if that helps us at all. Actually, I'm going to turn everything back on and then turn those Kogo points off. Turn off those points as well. Let's just see what happens there. Nope, still didn't work. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag and drop this into our drawing. And we literally just take this file and drag it into there. And it says, where do you want to insert? Base point 0, 0. Is there a scale? Scale is 1. Scale in another direction, rotation, none. Okay. So there it is. If I turn on the geolocation, you'll see that it lines up again. But now we have all of this other junk in there from this other drawing. So here's a trick to delete that. The command is laydel for layer delete, and you have to type in for name, and then it's going to pull up a list of all of these things. So let's go down through here and get to our layers. Oh, there's our layers. So I'm going to hold shift and then click that one. So all of these layers are their layers, and we're not touching any of our layers. And I'm going to hit OK. And so it says all of the objects on these layers will be deleted. Well, we know we don't have anything we want on those layers, so let's just go ahead and delete the layers. And then I'm going to do laydel again, N for name. And let's pick some more of these. I'm going to leave that depth points. That's a common layer that most drawings have in there. And I'm assuming that some of their Civil 3D stuff is on that control points layer, so I'm just going to leave that. What you can do, though, is on your Layer Manager tab, let me shrink this down so I can get it up here so we can see. We can scroll down to the bottom. So if there's a layer that you just don't want to get rid of or can't get rid of, you can just put a Z in front of it, and then it's going to drop to the bottom of your list, and now it's like not polluting your layer list in any way. And then, you know, if you need to get to it, it's down there at the bottom. And then if you want to dock this to the side, you can hold Control and move it over to the other screen. Or if you want to go this way, just go all the way to you. I have another screen off to the side. You go to the far left or the right, get it pointing the way you want, and then you can hold Control and it won't dock like the drawing was trying to do a few minutes ago. Docking, what I mean by docking is when you move it up here and then it goes up in like that. You don't want to do that. We don't want it to dock. So if I put it here, it would dock in there. You see that? But I'm going to hold down Control and move it off to another screen, and then it's not going to dock. Okay, so we've got that inserted in. Now we have kind of a base file that we can start working with. CS is the quick key for our command C sheet, and I like to hit the space bar to enter it. And then this tells you all the different layers that we have. We have a very sophisticated layering system with this command to turn everything on and off. So the capitalized letter tells you what layer, gives you a clue as to what layer to go to. So I hit M if I want to go to the existing conditions or demo. I hit V to go to the cover. There's actually no cover in model space. The cover is over here in paper space. PS is for preliminary site. S is for site. We have multiple sites. We'll get into that another day. We typically don't use them, but they're there in case we need to. DOT, grading, multiple gradings, utility. So you're going to use the most site, grading, and utility, S, G, and U. And then the erosion is just 1, 2, or 3. The notes on sheets 4 and 5 are all in paper space, so there's really don't need to worry about a layer for that. Then we have some landscape and site lighting layers and things like that. So I'm going to hit G for grading. And once you're working in this drawing, it's hard to see with the aerial on, so you can just go back up here to Marial, Aerial, and hit Map Off. If for some reason we wanted to change the state plane coordinate system, you can't just go into settings and change it. You have to hit Remove Location first, and then you can go back into the prospector, go to Settings, right-click on the drawing, the master drawing, Edit Drawing Settings, and then this will be blank, and you can pick a new state plane coordinate system here. And when you do that, you're always looking for the NAD 83 for the state that you're in with foot, and then there might be multiple zones. So here in Georgia we have 2 state plane coordinate systems, east and west, and that's also in meter and foot. So that's 4 options there: east meter, foot; west meter, foot. And so we're going to pick the NAD 83 west foot. But again, it's already set up, so we're not going to do anything here. Okay, so we've brought that project in. We've brought in our template drawing, and we'll go through. There's the cover sheet. It needs to be filled out. There's a blank sheet to put the survey in. There's our existing conditions / demo sheet, our site plan, our grading plan, our water quality or our stormwater strategy sheet. Utility, which usually our utility is 401. In this instance, because a lot of the residential that we happen to do for the clients that we have happens to be septic, so it's very often, very frequent that we're doing septic on these things. And so we pre-built in the 402, which is the septic design, and 403, which would be some septic details. And you'll have to bring in some images to have that load up on that sheet. But if you're not doing septic, you could just delete these two sheets. 502, again, that's our regular erosion control plan, just the middle erosion control plan. The layers that show up on this sheet are highly dependent upon the names of these tabs, so you can't change it. So even if we wanted to come over here and say this was 501, so that it's the first 500 series and it's a 1, that's totally fine, but you can't change this to 501 because then the layers will not show up correctly. 6 is for profiles if you need to. We try not to do too many pipes on residential plans because residential people typically don't clean out their storm pipes very well, and so we don't want to rely on a pipe to keep someone's house from flooding, knowing that they're not going to keep the pipe maintenance, maintained properly, and then they're going to have drainage problems. So we'd rather design the residential projects with swales and ways to convey the water above the ground, because you just don't have to rely on pipe maintenance. So a lot of times you're going to delete this sheet on projects. And for this one, we know everything's just draining straight down to the lake, so we're not going to need to profile anything. So I'm just going to delete. And if by chance we needed to, we could just right click and say from template and then go back to our file, support AutoCAD, and I could just click on this single family one. It'll load up and then it'll ask me, hey, which sheet do you want to bring in? And I just click on the sheet I want and hit OK, and then it'll pop back up in here. And the interesting thing about how our system is designed, this title block is a block. So once we've changed information in this block, that block is defined in the entire drawing. So when we bring in a new sheet, it comes in with all of the correct information already on it because that block has already been defined. This erosion control sheet typically is, you can pretty much just leave it all alone, don't need to change anything on it. The only thing you might need to change is non-sensitive silt fence versus sensitive. And since this one's right next to a lake, anytime you're near a stream or a water body, you want to use the sensitive. So this one, we'll just go ahead and swap that out. And then that sheet is done. 702, we've left some other erosion control details. Some others that you might use on the project but don't typically, so we just kind of put them down to the side, and then an extra sheet with just some things that might be more common to use on a residential project. But you may not even need that sheet. So that's it for the overview of these sheets. You'll get with whoever your project manager is, and they can tell you how to work on each of these sheets, and we'll be doing more videos that tell you how to do these things. So I just noticed that when I brought this in, it came in as a block. There's a setting in CAD where you can turn that on and off, where you bring it in and it's just lines, and then you bring it in, it's a block. If it's a block and we don't want it to be, I can just hit X for explode, and then it's exploded, and now I have everything in here. So again, C sheet, S for site, C sheet, and so a lot of this stuff will have to go on the demo layer. And let me show you an example. So let's say we take that concrete hatch, and oh look, demo VD is not showing up. Well, remember from our list of commands, if we run the command sieve lay, that loads our layers. F for full. And now if I go in here, there's all these layers are back, and there's a bunch of VD demo ones, and there's VD site concrete and building. So if I take this site concrete and I put that on the demo layer, and now it's gone on the site plan, I go back to the M for demo or existing conditions, and it's there. Note that I haven't put these things on a demo layer, so when I go to the site plan, they're still there. We do need to put those on the demo because we're going to do a whole new house on this project. G for grading, CSU for utility. There's probably not much there, just a power pole out front. So, oh, one more thing. These should be dashed lines, but they just look solid. And that's because every time a node happens, the line type starts over again. And it doesn't have enough length to start dashes. Here you can see these are long enough to make some dashes. So the way we fix that, I want to select all of these lines. There's two layers. We got the 10-foot contours and the 2-foot contours. So I'm going to select one of each, and then I'm going to hit SSA. That selects all of them. And then I'm going to run the command PG, and it says, do you want to generate continuously? I say yes. And so now the line type generates continuously, no matter if it goes through a node or not. We're going to need more labels on this. So if you're converting a survey and bringing it in, what I like to recommend is that we put the labels on all of the major things around the outside of the property, because we're not going to grade outside the property on 99% of the projects. And so then it's easier to, if you have lines all over on top of these labels, it's hard to read. But if you have a label right here, then you can just follow it and see, when your line splits off. So it's just easier to see if we move these labels around the outside, and then maybe we add a few in the interior as need be. But we're definitely not gonna need all of these like middle, 2-foot contour labels, because they're just gonna be irrelevant. That one's outside, so I'll leave that. But they really just become irrelevant once we're changing all the grades. So I'm gonna do that just to clean it up a little bit. Okay. Let me think if there's anything else. We'll do some setup, LT. Oh, let's go in here, and if I select this, my properties, I'm actually going to dock this so we can see it more. The display is not locked, so I can go in, I can double click in there and zoom in and out. You typically don't want to do that once you have it set up, because you don't want to mess up your viewport. All of these viewports are named, they're on the same layer, and so we have some commands that when you run a command on this viewport, it's the same layer, it changes them all the same. So we're going to select that and type VP lock, and we want to unlock them all. So I'm going to right click, so now I know they're all unlocked. I can double click in here, hit middle button W, right click, and that's zoom extents, and you can see that's the blocks that we were just looking at. And then up here is our project. So I'm going to zoom in over here. And I'm just going to take a guess that this drawing is going to be a 20 scale. And so I can set that by Z for zoom, and then 1/20 XP. And that looks pretty good. If we did a 10, it probably wouldn't even fit on the page. So a 20 is probably appropriate. So now that I've done that, the other way you can set it is you can just select this here and then go over here and click whatever you want. So there's always multiple ways of doing things in CAD. So go back to the 20 scale. That looks right. I like to leave space around so that you have room for notes and things like that. These lines appear to be maybe some styles that haven't been regenerated. So if I do regen, it's probably just going to regen paper space. But if I do regen all, it should regenerate paper and model, and I'm going to expect those red lines to kind of resize to appropriate size. Yep, and it does. Okay, so the other command, VP match, and it's going to match all of the viewports to be exactly like this one that are on the same layer. And so it uses the outermost boundaries, so this edge and this edge of the viewport, this edge and this edge of the viewport. It calculates the center, and then it projects a scale. So you can move this in and out. It doesn't affect. You can move this in and out like that, and it doesn't affect lining up your drawing. We want to be able to flip pages, and this boundary is in the exact same place on every sheet. So I'm going to go to another sheet. Look, there it is. Another one. There it is. This guy. We've already put this viewport on a different layer, and so you can see it didn't change this one. This one we're going to do a little small viewport, and so we've already have it set on a different layer. So those are set. If I grab these again and I do VP lock and left click to lock, now I can grab these and you can see they're all locked. So if I double click in here and I zoom, it doesn't change the viewport, it just zooms everything because it's locked. And so we picked a 20 scale. You'll need to go through here and pick 20 scale for each of those drawings. After we've set up our model space, another thing, we use a lot of this information in here. We want to move this up to be close to our project. So just like when you're copying a drawing from one project to another, you want to hit middle button Y, A to turn everything on, select all that stuff, and then M for move, and then I'm just going to grab it and zoom in, and I'm just going to put it close by but outside the picture. Now if I do zoom extents, kind of everything's right there where I want it. The other thing I was going to show you is there's a command VP rect for rectangle, and it projects a rectangle in model space exactly where the outside extents of this viewport are. And so it's going to go to this edge because this viewport here is going to that edge. And then I know exactly how big is going to show up in my viewport. And one of the reasons you want to do that, we usually put this on the aerial layer. I'm going to run a command, that same one, purge end, and it's going to get rid of all these extra layers that I don't need. Then I don't have to cycle through so many layers. I like to put this rectangle on the aerial layer, and I should have put it on that layer before I ran the command. So now I need to run civlay again, full to load it back up. And then I'm going to put it on that aerial layer. And now when I run purge end, it's not going to get rid of that layer because there's an object on that layer. So there it is. And since this is behind the viewport, we're never going to see it in viewport. But now I know exactly how big to make my my aerial. So remember, PS is for preliminary site, and sorry, I need to run CS and then PS. That's preliminary site, and we have an aerial turned on the preliminary site plans, but not on the site plan. So when I hit PS, it turned this aerial layer back on. If you turn on your map, and now we can capture the area. And I don't want to capture the whole viewport. I just want to pick an area, and I'm going to pick just a little bit bigger than that. And remember, we had a lot of information on this side of our screen and model space, so I don't need to go all the way out there. But I will go down a little bit below the rectangle because there's a logo that shows up in the aerial, that little Microsoft logo. And then you can grab it, fade it, maybe between 50 and 70%, depending on what you're doing for preliminary. Change this pixelation to very fine. And so this background image in CAD never shows up on a plot. But when you capture it, this becomes a geomap image, and this does show up when you plot. So you'll need to do that. And the reason you want to keep it just as big as that viewport box is because the bigger you make it, it actually loads all of that information into your drawing. So your drawing file is going to grow dramatically when you bring this image in there. And if you just click it from here to here, your file is going to be massive. And when you have massive files, it's going to be more likely that your computer is going to crash, it's going to work more slowly, it's going to take more time to regen. So you really just want that thing to be as small as possible. And so now when we go back here to these sheets, you can see that that aerial is in there. Now the aerials, like I said before, they don't typically show up on our normal site plan, they show up on our preliminary site plans. So when I run the command CSVP, it's going to refresh the layers on here. And the reason the aerial is still showing up is because I didn't put it on the correct layer. So let's go back and put it on the aerial layer. And another command I can use is CG to match the layer. And I'm going to click that. So now this didn't do something right. Yeah, why didn't that work? Oh, probably because the geomap image, I know you can't move it above things or below things, but probably doesn't work with a CG command. So we'll just manually go down and pick it. I'm going to put it on this layer here. So now they're on the same layer. Now when I go to the site plan, it doesn't show up anymore. But our preliminary site plans are labeled CP1, CP2. So if this was labeled CP3, any CP number, and we do CSVP again, it's going to show it up because it's just refreshed the layers based on the name of this thing. So we'll change it back to 201, and you'll see that some of these sheets haven't changed. If I run the command CSVP all, it's going to do all of the sheets at the same time. So these are all the sheets that it found, and it changed all the viewports in there. And see 002, it didn't find anything for that, so it just didn't do anything. And then the electronic data transfer agreement, it didn't find anything for that. We'll do another video on that and explain what that is. So I also know we're only going to have, I was thinking we had 2 survey sheets. We actually only have 1. Cover, survey, so I was going to get rid of another sheet, but we don't need to. Okay, so that's a pretty good overview. We've gone over a lot of different things, shown you how to bring in the single family template, kind of go through and get rid of a couple sheets that we don't need. We brought in the survey. I showed you 2 ways to do it. The way that we want to do it actually didn't work, and we kind of took our second choice. That's very rare. That happens maybe 1 out of 100. So you guys got really lucky today that you got to see it not work. That was rare. But you got to learn both of those ways. And we set up some sheets. We learned some stuff about some viewports and whatnot. And let me show you one other thing. When you get in your drawing, if you type IM, it'll pull up this external references or images tab. I like to keep it open all the time. You don't want to have a bunch of unloaded things because every time you save, it's going to go through and try to find them, and it's just going to take more time. So what I recommend is clicking status so that the loaded stuff is up top and other things are down there. We're not going to mess with that because that obviously came from the survey and I don't know exactly what it is. These are our checklists, so you can't just purge those out. But once we get down into here, we can basically just get rid of any of these unreferenced things. I select the top one, hold shift and press that, and then right click, detach. And so now it just cleans those up and they're gone. And so again, you want to get in the habit of running purge end and then audit pretty frequently. But that's also going to mean that you're going to need some layers and you're going to have to run civlay again, hit F for full to load all of the full layers. You're going to have to run civlay more often and purge end more often, but it's going to make it so that you don't have a huge number of layers in your list. You know, there's, I don't know, I'd guess 60 or 70 in there now, which is very manageable. But when you get 200, 250, 300, it gets hard to find stuff. So it's just nice to keep that list pretty short. So that concludes the overview of the residential title block and layout and template. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks so much.